Welcome back, pro wrestling fans. Welcome back, IWC, to Guardian of Chaos, the YouTube channel, here for Chaos Corner. One man, unique, unedited, unscripted, raw dog for you, the fans. This is part 2 of Who is the GOAT in the WWF/WWE. Sit back and relax, drop an elbow on that like button. Thank you, Austin Nance, for being here, my mod. And of course, the OTS Tribal Queen, we hope you're doing well. We're thinking about you. Drop an elbow, as I said, on that like button. Share, subscribe, leave a comment. Become a member. I think it's $2 or $3 a month. It's the best way to support this channel. This is a much needed distraction, a temporary stress reliever in the days that we're living in. Just remember, I love all you guys, and I'm here out of motivation and passion. Follow me over on Twitter, aka X, at Big Daddy GOC, and the GOC stands for the Guardian of Chaos. Let's move on. Go back and check out part 1 of Who is the GOAT. Had a little opening monologue, and then we went in no particular order. We started off with Bruno Sammartino and Andre the Giant. Here we are in part 2, and we start off with the late, great, immortal Hulk Hogan. And we'll take a quick moment of silence for the Hulkster who just recently passed away. Rest in peace, brother. For those of us who grew up watching the WWF in the mid-'80s and earlier, and even into the 90s, it's almost a reflex response to say Hulk Hogan when asked who was the biggest star in wrestling history. There was always a sense that modern wrestling only began on the 23rd of January, 1984, when Hogan won his first world title by dropping the leg on the Iron Sheik in Madison Square Garden. Everything before that belonged in a dusty old history book. I don't agree with that. Looking back, it's easy to see why it felt that way. In those days, Hogan was the WWF. Let's be honest. This is all up for debate. And the WWF with Hulk Hogan, at no time before or since have the company's fortunes been so totally invested in a single on-screen talent. Hulkamania was a phenomenon, drawing so well that heel wrestlers knew they would make more money from a short feud with the real American than they would from months of toil against anyone else on the roster. Now let's remember, in today's day and age, the billions of dollars to Netflix, now ESPN, PLEs, pay-per-views, AEW, HBO Max, even TNA Impact. I mean, who knew? The wrestling industry, which is scripted, choreographed violence, theater, soap opera entertainment, physicality. I mean, that's what it is. Everyone for years in the 60s and 70s and 80s, oh, they laughed at you maybe if you were a kid, said it was fake. Who's laughing now? Who's mainstream now? It's pretty ironic, is it not? Thank you, Bruno Sammartino, Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan. The numbers show just how popular he was. For 8 consecutive years, starting in 1984, Hogan was easily the biggest draw in the wrestling world and regularly smashed his own records for attracting the highest numbers of large crowds in a single year. Combined with the ever-growing numbers of pay-per-view purchases as the technology became available to more and more households. It was clear that this was a moment unlike any other that had preceded it in wrestling history. I have a good source here from the WWE, WWF. We have to go back to go forward. This was written 20 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, with my own knowledge and keeping track as a historian and researcher, you could go on about today if need be. Of course, to really understand Hulkamania, you need to look beyond simple statistics and consider how Hogan's years completely transformed the public perception of professional wrestling. Thanks to the NBC network specials and the rock and wrestling connection between the WWF and upstart cable channel MTV. The mid-1980s saw professional wrestling become embedded in mainstream youth culture to an unprecedented degree. Now, in the middle 80s, I'm already in my middle 20s. So that's where I was at this time of the business, when most of you out here that are in today's oversaturated market, especially on streaming and podcasts and all different platforms, most of you were dripping down your daddy's leg or maybe bounced off the sheets. I mean, no disrespect, man. I'm trying to keep it rated PG here. Family's watching. That's just the facts. That's just the truth. You got to know where you've been before you know where you're going. That's why the rear view mirror is much smaller. You look back, you honor it, you respect it. That's tradition. That's where you came from. Then you look at the windshield, which is bigger for a reason, because that's where you're going. That's the future. But the rear view mirror is just as important as the front windshield. And without it, you can't get to where you're going or even where you are. So look at it, mash the pedal, full speed ahead. Stand by. Don't go anywhere. I need my caffeine. We're early here, or is it late? Little Dunkin' Donuts espresso. No, they're not a sponsor. All my sponsors kicked me to the curb, and you know who you are. Thanks for bearing with me. Grab a snack, grab a beverage. Doing a lot of work down here in Chaos Corner, in the vault of Chaos Chronicles. Focus, Chaos, focus. Let's get back to who is the GOAT, part 2. We're talking about rock and wrestling. We're talking about the mid-80s, where I was in my life. Where were you? Wrestling was legitimately cool, and its biggest star became every bit as much of the 1980s as icons as David Hasselhoff, which he was no icon to me, or home computers, power ballads, or shoulder pads. The first WrestleMania, although a tremendous risk for Vince McMahon, that's how the story goes. Who knows for real, right, Vince? It ended up being the apex of that unexpected union between Hollywood glitz and a form of entertainment that used to be looked down upon. Very interesting. I hope you're paying attention. I hope your notebooks are out and you're writing this down. Suddenly, WWF wrestlers were rubbing shoulders with Muhammad Ali, Liberace, Cyndi Lauper, and Mr. T. At the centerpiece of it all was Hulk Hogan. His star power helped to turn Vince McMahon Jr.'s existential gamble into one of the great commercial success stories of the age and set the WWF on a course to becoming the multi-billion dollar empire that WWE is today. Twice as that. Twice the billions. It really is. Saudi Arabia, Netflix, ESPN. I mean, really? He really was that important, Hulk Hogan. I want you guys to remember all that, you guys and gals. Let me get comfortable and sit back here. There'll be a part 3 as well. In which case, why was it controversial for Hogan to make that recent claim that he will be remembered as the greatest ever? Well, for starters, there have been plenty of better workers from bell to bell, and there have been plenty of arguments over the years about whether Hogan's dominance came at the price of holding others back. Perhaps more importantly, there would come another era just a few years later where the live gates were even bigger. By that time, I'm already in my middle 30s and was in the business actively. I want you guys to remember that. I made my debut as a pro wrestling manager in 1990. My journey started in 1983. out of ring, taking the bumps in 2008. Still active today in 2025 with my home company, Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling. Let's just remember the journey, the 40-year journey of the GOC. I mean, that's me. It's my channel. I could say that. That's facts. Where were we? Perhaps more importantly, there would come another era just a few years later. And the weekly TV ratings were higher than anyone had imagined was even possible on cable television. For all of his mainstream appeal, Hogan never had the crossover success that some of his successors, one in particular, enjoyed when they turned their attention to Hollywood. For all of his importance to the company, it's hard to forget that he was also nearly instrumental in its downfall on more than one occasion. Around the times of both the McMahon steroid trial and his spell of his on-screen heroism, leading the efforts of arch rivals WCW, the Monday Night Wars. It's hard to forget that. And finally, of course, for all of his on-screen heroism, it's impossible to ignore the racist outburst that was leaked in 2015 and caused WWE to temporarily sever all ties with the real-life Terry Bollea. And again, right, wrong, or indifferent, because he was certainly wrong. Some people are indifferent. Some people think it was right. You got to have your head up your ass. It was despicable, as all of it is. But we're second chances for everybody and anybody. You all want a second chance, don't you? Pretty quick to jump on that judgment wagon. And remember, how you judge others, you too will be judged. Every knee will bend and every tongue will confess. Something to that is respect. You know what I'm talking about. For everybody that jumped on it when Hogan passed away. Just want you to remember, not here to judge anybody. I'm here to tell it like it is. I don't give a fuck about your sexual orientation, your sexual identity, your politics, your color, creed, your religion. I could care less about any of that. Don't jam it down my throat. No. Pretty simple for everything that's going on in this current day, but I'm here to be a distraction for that. And that's the biggest reason why sometimes I don't watch today's product for any one of the companies pushing their own personal agendas as talent on company time. We come to the sports and entertainment and music, no matter what it is, Major League Sports, pro wrestling, to escape the realities of everyday grind and the ignorance that's out there. Not for your personal agenda. And if any one of us did it in our company on their time, you'd be fired. So remember that. And that's to the fucking talent out there too. I'm not hard to find. We could always have a conversation, but it's the truth, man. You think you're above it because you're entertainers? You're not. None of you. Keep your personal agenda on your personal time. Just where I'm coming from, and I know a lot of people feel that way, but let's get off that subject. Who is the GOAT Part 2? We're talking about Hulk Hogan. Mainstream appeal, crossover success, Monday Night Wars. What Terry Bollea did say in 2015. WWE obviously temporarily suspended everything with him as well. Then he got involved with politics and so on and so forth. But it was his personal time. Remember that. Just like his Undertaker, Mick Foley, Kane, so on and so forth. They're not on company time or the company's dime now. But some of you just don't like it. It's not a one-way street. It's not. There will be plenty of fans for whom that episode has irreparably damaged the Hogan legacy, and understandably so. Whether he's the GOAT or not depends on your criteria. But there's no doubt whatever that Hulk Hogan is, right up there with the most influential figures in WWE history. Now, the pros of Hulk Hogan, the undisputed focal point of the WWF during arguably its most important decade. Also, pop culture icon who helped lodge pro wrestling firmly at the heart of 1980s into the 1990s America. The cons, and there's plenty of them. We could do a whole podcast. This isn't a fucking podcast, a show about that. His drawing power and crossover appeal were both later eclipsed by Attitude Era stars. We'd have to check that out. But it's fairly accurate. The numbers are skewed, and you know that. And in 2015, his racist comments that were taped in the privacy of his own home, which does matter whether you just want to believe it or not. It's the truth. May forever tarnish his reputation. Rest in peace, Hulk. Bret the Hitman Hart. You guys also know my history with Bret the Hitman Hart. When I was commissioner for the NAWA, North American Wrestling Alliance, dating back to when it started in the 1980s all the way through the 2000s, I took over office for Bruno Sammartino when he stepped down as the temporary commissioner. During that time, I was lucky enough to be on a couple of different events with Bret the Hitman Hart and introduced him in ring. The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. It's on video here on the channel. 6,500 videos on this channel. Over 1.5 million total views. Not only that, Bret Hart came back to the locker rooms on those nights and spoke to each and every talent, no matter who they were, and gave them time. Photo ops, conversations. Everyone said he's a bitter old man, this, that. You guys don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but you think that you have an effect on it. The only effect you have on the WWE is this. Money. That's all they care about. If you think you affect anything, you don't. Stop going, stop buying, and then you'll affect. So when it comes to Bret the Hitman Hart, I just like to relay my experiences so you know why you're following this channel and who the real deal is. The best there is, the best there was. Oh, back to that appearances by Bret Hart when I was commissioner for our company. It was the first time he appeared back in the New York City area since the legendary Montreal screw job. A part of history. I want you guys to remember that and why you're here. And I like to throw out tidbits because you guys inbox me, email me, ask questions, and I greatly appreciate you wanting to know more of my story. I had a cup of coffee. Maybe two. I never signed a contract or worked for Vince. So that means a lot to me. But the experiences, the stories, the videos, the photos, the friendships, you can never take that away from the legacy. Always remember that about yourselves and who you are, because each and every one of you have your own story, and it's just as important as anybody else's. Remember that. The best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. That was the mantra of Canada's favorite son during his storied career. But naturally, is Bret Hart's place in WWE history? Where is it? One of 12 children born to veteran grappler Stu Hart and his wife Helen. Bret had a thorough wrestling education by the time that he appeared in the WWF in the mid-1980s as one half of the Hart Foundation. And just to relay another story on my history, it's here on the channel. Being able to work with Jim the Anvil Neidhart, hanging out in the hotels, the bars, the restaurants, being on his side and then being across the ring from the Anvil. The stories about Owen Hart. Unbelievable. I am forever blessed and humbled and fortunate to have worked with the Hart Foundation. Really, and appear with the Hart Foundation. I was never in ring to work with Bret Hart, but Anvil, yes. I like to keep it real here. Keep it 100. And again, Bret's debut in the mid-80s as half of the Hart Foundation. Having outgrown that role by the end of the decade, Bret was given his opportunity as a singles wrestler in 1991 and immediately shined. His 2 reigns as Intercontinental Champion are considered to be among the best ever, and his ability to be consistently steal the show with his in-ring abilities helped to make him one of the most popular wrestlers on the roster. His pink and black color scheme, The long hair, the wraparound sunglasses made him effortlessly cool, and by 1992, he was getting crowd reactions that were impossible to ignore. Admittedly, his timing was good too. Hart was hitting his peak just as the company's steroid controversy was becoming a serious concern. So there had never been a better moment for a technical wizard with a slightly smaller frame to challenge the McMahon orthodoxy of building his company around muscular superheroes whose talent often didn't match their appearance. Even so, it took some convincing once Hulk Hogan left in 1993. Vince's instinct was initially to build Lex Luger into the next All-American hero, but the experiment failed, and Hart was finally anointed as the new face of the company at WrestleMania 10, I believe it was. Somebody research me on that. It was fairly short-lived in the end. Hart was only the biggest draw on the North American scene in 1993 and perhaps 1994. During a major slump in wrestling's popularity after the Hogan years. Obviously, that's when ECW came onto the scene. By 1996, he was sharing the main event spotlight with Shawn Michaels. And after taking a hiatus for some of that year, it became increasingly clear that there wasn't enough room for them both at the top guy, or to be that top guy in 93, 94, 95. We're talking that era. Again, I'm in my early 30s. In the business, in the industry, if you will, as a talent. Just to correlate the time frame here. This created one of the more exciting dynamics ever seen in the company during 1997. Hart and his family members turned heel for American audiences, but were still adored in Canada and throughout much of the rest of the world, where the Hitman had always had a particular strong following. Of course, it all ended in tears with the Montreal Screwjob and Hart's departure for WCW. But for a while, it made for compelling television. His WCW run was a letdown, though no fault of his own. And Hart had to retire in 2000 after suffering a concussion during a match against Goldberg. Hart's relationship with the WWE thawed over time, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2006 before making his return to WWE television in 2010. Where does all of that leave Hart in the annals of wrestling history? It's fair to say that Bret the Hitman Hart was the bridge between the Hulkamania years and the Attitude Era, captaining the team in a way that often doesn't receive enough credit through a difficult period between the two greatest eras the company ever saw. In 1997, his real-life reticence to be part of a product that was evolving into something edgier and more adult made him the perfect foil for Michaels, and for Stone Cold Steve Austin. And ultimately, his ugly departure on that infamous night at Survivor Series helped create the Vince McMahon heel character that would evolve into the main antagonist to Stone Cold's anti-hero. But more than all of that, Bret Hart's contribution to the WWF was to normalize having main event stars who were high-quality technical wrestlers rather than bodybuilders with mere limited skills and skill sets. One of the all-time great in-ring performers, the Hitman opened the door for so many others whose size and style might otherwise have blocked them from reaching the top of the industry. Regardless of whether or not he's the GOAT, that's a pretty cool legacy to have. The pros for Bret the Hitman Hart on who's the GOAT? Brilliant technician who was tremendously influential in evolving the WWF's in-ring style. Carried the company throughout a difficult patch that paved the way for its later success between the Hulkamania era into the Attitude Era, roughly is what we're relaying here. You guys give me your opinion. The cons of the Hitman, although very popular, never quite hit the stratospheric heights of others on the list at their peak. His time as the main guy was actually quite brief, although very consistent throughout his career, especially given how often he had to share the spotlight. Pretty compelling argument for these first four guys here, right? The talent: Bruno Sammartino, Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, Bret the Hitman Hart. This is part 2 of Who is the GOAT in the WWE. Don't go anywhere. I want to keep each one of these shows under a half an hour, and we'll be right back with part 3 of Who is the GOAT of the WWE. We'll be talking about Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker, The Rock, John Cena. Come on back. I greatly appreciate it. I'll say that to say this because I tell it like it is. Austin, are you with me, man? I'll give you a second. Don't you dare miss it.